Hi, I'm Cailey, a librarian here at Mentor Public Library.
And I'm Meg, also a librarian, and welcome to this week's edition of All Books Up with Cailey and Meg, where each time we give you different book recommendations on a specific theme. So this time it's June, so we are going to be looking at Pride Month. So this is loving people of the LGBT plus community. And so the books we're looking at today are just a few of the many that are written by and for this community.
Yes, and today we're also focusing on teen books because there is a plethora of amazing LGBT teen books. And all of the books that we're going to talk to you about today are available here at the library, as well as online through Hoopla and Libby.
Okay, Cailey, what is your first book today?
My first one is actually a graphic novel that I read on Hoopla. So little plug for Hoopla there. This one is called Cheer Up, Love and Pompoms by Crystal Frasier, illustrated by Val Wise. And this is about a teenager, Annie, who is starting her senior year of high school. And despite her stellar grades, she has this negative attitude about everything related to school. She's very much of a loner, really good with her classes, but she's a bit argumentative, has a few incidents with detention, bit someone, but just that one time. And so she gets called in with her mom to talk about how to improve her transcript for college. And the big thing is that she does not have any clubs or teams or anything that she's on, which she thinks is utterly ridiculous. But through a series of events, so fast she can barely control it, Annie finds herself trying out and being accepted on the cheer squad. Then there is BB, who is the perfect child, but her grades are not up to her parents' high standards. And her father has had a hard time with all the changes going on in BB's life lately. And BB has a really hard time saying no. She is very much the people pleaser. But, through all of this, she just keeps taking on all of the challenges thrown at her with a smile, like being kind of forced into being the cheer captain, even though she has a lot going on right now, because people think that, having her the first transgender cheer captain will be newsworthy and also make for a great college essay. So even though she's already super overloaded with this, she says yes. And in that brings her and Annie together, who they used to be close friends until a couple of years ago when things started to change and they grew apart. But now that they're back together for cheer and dealing with all of the craziness that comes with being on a team together, they have grown quickly to rekindle that friendship. And they realize that they can help one another because Annie's really good with the school stuff and BB's really good with the social stuff. So maybe together they can kind of help each other and maybe a little something more along the way. And this book is just so sweet. Like, it deals with a lot of really hard issues at the core, but it ultimately puts these two very different girls together, one who's very positive about everything, even though she's not so positive on the inside, and one who's very negative about everything, but really doesn't quite feel that on the inside. And it also just deals a lot with friendships and acceptance of who people are and everything. And it has some really great illustrations throughout too.
Oh, wow. And as you were talking about the differences between the two characters, I actually found when you were describing both of them very relatable. So that's what's so funny is they're so different on the surface, but I think we've all felt both of their emotions. So I think that's really relatable. And BB is a really cute name. That's just so sweet. I just
short for Beatrice.
Beatrice. I love it. Annie and BB, very sweet. I love it. So my first one I'm going to be talking about today is called Great or Nothing. Now wait for it. There's 4 authors and I will explain later why, but it's by Joy McCullough, Tess Sharpe, Tung Richmond, and Jessica Spotswood. And what this book is, it's a reimagining of Little Women set in the spring of 1942. So when the I got you good. See? I knew I would. So this is right when the US is entering World War II, and it's talking all about the four sisters and how they are dealing with it in all their lives. So you may wonder why I'm talking about this one today. Well, the reason is because of the arc of the character of Joe in this book. So I don't know if I'm going to be spoiling anything. So spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't read Little Women. You should read it though. Come on. But in the original by Louisa May Alcott, Joe turns down the heartthrob Laurie's proposal. We're all crushed by it. But then she moves to New York and later falls in love with and marries Professor Bear, this much older gentleman. And this is something that is still controversial, I think, to this day for fans of the book. When you say, I mean, it's just kind of, some people love it, some think Joe should have done something totally different. So for people who maybe feel that way, rather than, contemplating Professor Bear's beard hairs, like in the original book, in this one, she meets a fellow female writer whose goal is to be a war correspondent. So if anyone was disappointed with the original story, maybe they can try this arc and see what they think of it. And aside from that, it's just a really fun translation of the original story. It's very seamless because the original took place during the Civil War. So a lot of the things kind of translated, I thought, well, and it was fun because each sister's point of view was written by one of the four authors. So that's why there was four. So it gives it a very distinct flavor. Like each character sounds different because it's from a different author, which I thought was pretty cool. And then I just thought, read this to enjoy Joe building Air Force planes, seeing Laurie in an air pilot outfit, and Amy as a Red Cross volunteer, and maybe just humming some 40s swing music. So
that sounds fun. And I do like when, we add that element of a different place and time to a story that we're familiar with. And I think that there's been a lot of Joe disappointment from readers over the years. Right. So I wouldn't be surprised if this fulfills a little bit of those, oh, she took a different route kind of ideas. Yeah. What about you? Well, my next one is a contemporary fiction. It's called Love Somebody by Rachel Roasek. This one is Sam, who is a popular, driven teenage girl who is determined to do it all and just headstrong enough to do so. And then her ex-boyfriend, Christian, who is the star of the soccer team, very sweet, but a very bad communicator, hence the fact that he's her ex. And the two of them have managed to stay best friends after their breakup. Their relationship was about 6 months, which is a long time when you're in high school, but they've managed to stay friends. And Christian goes to Sam for help when he falls instantly for the brilliant, beautiful, aloof Roz, who is this loner that he basically thinks he has no chance with, but he fell in love with her immediately and he needs his good friend Sam's help. So Sam agrees to help Christian to woo Ross, Sam agrees to help Christian to woo Roz, but she has her own motives as well and has her own bit of a crush on Roz. And this is a sort of Cyrano de Bergerac retelling. Are you catching on?
Yeah.
As we talked about retellings before.
I love it.
Yeah. So this Cyrano type retelling plays out much the way you'd expect, with Sam helping Christian try to get Roz's attention while simultaneously falling harder herself for Roz. But it's still this fresh modern take on the story. And somehow the author manages to make us fall in love with all three of these characters in this love triangle here. So we get to know each character and learn about what's sort of driven them to this point and how they're progressing. And, everyone is deeper than they seem, even Christian. And we learn a lot about their own motives going forward. And this is a diverse cast of characters, with characters who are bisexual, pansexual, gender fluid, etc. And so it's a nice, refreshing, modern take on this story. And it emphasizes a lot about the friendships as well as the relationships. And I like that in general because, friends forever and all that in high school is a big thing. And a lot of these relationships that kids have in high school are quite fleeting. So their friendships are the things that tend to last.
Yeah, and I love the retelling. We both love that. And Cyrano de Bergerac's a great story, and it's a great medium to, when you're struggling maybe with wanting to express something that you don't know how to, he kind of wrote these letters because he had something he didn't want to share, but eventually could. So a very interesting take on it. And I think it sounds pretty interesting. So my last one is The Magic Fish by Trung and Nguyen. And this is a graphic novel, and it's a debut, and it is a book where fairy tales are the only way a boy can communicate with his Vietnamese immigrant parents, but how will he be able to tell them that he's gay? So he's kind of wanting to communicate this with them, but he doesn't have the language to do so. So the book really honestly focuses on Tien, he's the boy, the main character, and his mother, Helen. So Helen is an immigrant still struggling to speak English. And Tien, at this point, he's kind of been raised in America. So they have two different cultural foundations they're coming from. However, and we'll love this as librarians, they bond reading fairy tales at the library. So that is where they come together and feel close to one another. So the narrative is really told through 3 separate channels. And I think it's a really neat way that he does it. So Tien, the boy, his current experiences are shown in hues of red. So his friendships at school, his crush, things like that, they're all explained in that. And then his mother, Helen, it flashes back to her experiences in Vietnam, beautiful shades of yellow. And then binding them both together are like the fairy tales that they love, the both of them love, in blue. And it's 2 retellings of Cinderella, 2 separate ones, and then one of The Little Mermaid. And what is interesting is, these stories back and front, you already know them, but this book, it kind of twists them in unique ways and gives them maybe surprise endings that you wouldn't expect. So these endings and twists kind of open up a way for Tien and his mom to develop like a new language. So even though there's struggles, for him to tell his mother the truth about, what he wants to tell her about who he is and what he feels, and for them to both experience, unfailing love. So I also really loved how in an interview, the author stated how he wanted to explore the story of someone revealing their sexuality through the lens of language and cultural barriers. So I think the art beautifully captures the longing for embrace, acceptance, and communication with really the ones who we most want to know us as we really are. So I was grateful for him writing that, and it's visually stunning as well.
And I think, we've talked about it plenty of times before when it comes to graphic novels, that color is such a powerful storyteller itself. And the colors that the illustrators and sometimes the authors themselves that they choose to use really can speak to the story, the ones they use or don't use even.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us for this week's edition of All Booked Up with Cailey and Meg. We hope you take these recommendations and maybe find some inspiration for new reading and new thoughts. So have a good day.
Yes. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Happy reading.